Hey guys, tonight you find yourself standing ankle-deep in winter mud on a road that curls toward a Tudor manor, while river mist presses low against the hedges and turns every thorn into a silver hook. Cold stone waits ahead beyond a dark wall. Damp straw clings to your boots, smoke gathers beneath the rafters of a roadside shelter behind you, and across the fields monastery bells mark an hour no one has bothered to explain. A torch moves along the gate, horse breath drifts white in the air. Your cloak smells of wet wool, your fingers have forgotten warmth, and medieval travel brochures really oversold this experience. You probably would not last a week out here, especially if the weather, the food, or the local fleas are allowed a vote. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And leave a comment telling everyone where you are listening from and what the local time is. Whether you are awake beneath city lights, resting in a village, or pretending tomorrow does not begin quite so early. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You draw your fur-lined cloak more tightly around your shoulders and continue along the rutted lane. The fur is thin at the elbows and smells faintly of the sheep shed where you borrowed it, but it blocks enough of the winter wind to preserve hope that your hands may remain attached until supper. Frost whitens the field edges. Beyond them bare oaks stand like black ink strokes against a grey sky, and crows shift heavily among the branches. The manor lies half a mile ahead, though distance is difficult to judge in mist. Its chimneys rise first, then the roof line, then the square bulk of a gatehouse set into a wall of worn stone. No one can quite agree whether the oldest tower was built by a soldier returning from France or by his grandson who simply preferred a more impressive family story. Either way, the tower leans slightly east as though listening for gossip from the village. Your invitation is tucked inside your tunic, protected by a scrap of waxed cloth. You have checked it so often that the folded paper has gone soft at the edges. A clerk in the market town wrote your name in a hand grander than your circumstances, then charged an extra penny because the first letter included a decorative flourish. Even ink has a hierarchy. A cart creaks toward you from behind. One wheel is bound with rope, and each turn produces a wooden complaint. The driver, wrapped in a patched cloak, carries 2 baskets of onions, a sack of coarse bread, and 3 geese whose opinions travel farther than the monastery bells. He nods but does not stop. The cart sinks into a rut, lurches free, and leaves you with a fresh stripe of mud across your stockings. You pass a roadside shrine built into the hedge. Inside its little wooden niche, a painted saint has lost most of his face to rain. Someone has left a pilgrim badge, a crust of bread, and a twist of red thread. Some swear that tying such thread around the wrist prevents fever, provided it is knotted while a bell is ringing. Others say it merely helps you remember which wrist is yours after too much ale. You touch the niche out of habit, though you cannot name the saint. The road rises. Under your boots frozen earth gives way to slick clay. To your left a narrow stream carries brown leaves beneath a skin of ice. A boy from the outer farms has been breaking that ice with a stick, but he runs when he sees the manor wall, perhaps remembering work. You hear axes in a distant copse, the dull rhythm of winter fuel being cut and stacked before darker weather arrives. Near the wall the smell changes. Wet soil and horse dung remain, but now there is wood smoke roasting meat, spilled ale and the sharp sweetness of crushed herbs. Somewhere within kitchen fires have been burning since before dawn. Oxen must be turning on spits. Bakers must be sliding loaves from ovens with long wooden peels. Scullions must be scraping pots with sand because soap is too precious for such ambitious labour. Your stomach answers the smells with a low, private growl. Breakfast was half a heel of bread softened in small ale, and the bread had resisted softening with admirable courage. You imagine white loaves, salted butter capons glazed with spice, and pies sealed beneath golden crusts. Then you remember that a Tudor banquet is less a meal than an examination conducted with knives. The outer fields narrow into a causeway. Water fills the ditch on either side, black and still, except where reeds tremble. Ahead, carts queue beneath the gate arch. Servants carry bundles of rushes for the hall floor, replacing the old covering that has trapped grease bones, fleas, and perhaps several lost generations of dignity. A man leads a pig past you. The pig looks confident, which seems unfair considering the evening ahead. A small brindled dog appears from beneath a wagon and begins following at your heel. Its ears are torn, its paws are muddy, and its faith in you is completely unsupported by evidence. You try to wave it away. It blinks, sneezes, and continues. By the time you reach the final bend, you have acquired a companion and lost the last clean patch on your cloak. The gatehouse towers above you now. Torchlight stains the mist amber. Iron keys hang at a guard's belt. Oak doors stand open just wide enough to admit carts one at a time, and above them narrow windows watch the road without warmth. You hear laughter inside the walls, then the scrape of barrels, the clatter of hooves, and a bell sounding from the manor chapel. You stop beneath the shadow of the arch. Water drips from the stone. The dog sits on your boot. Your invitation presses against your chest. The banquet waits beyond the gate, and already survival feels like a privilege requiring written proof. The guard beneath the arch does not greet you. He looks first at your boots, then at the dog, then at the mud spreading from both across the stones. His beard is clipped short. His wool cap is dark with rain, and one gloved hand rests on the ring of iron keys at his belt. Behind him, a second guard leans near a brazier, warming his palms. You present the folded invitation. The first guard takes it between two fingers as if damp paper might carry plague. He studies the decorative flourish and asks your name. You answer. He asks again. You answer more slowly because rank often requires repetition before it becomes believable. The brindled dog scratches at the gatepost. The guard glances down. Yours You shake your head. The dog presses closer to your ankle. This is not persuasive. A cart rattles past you carrying barrels sealed with wax. One bears a brewer's mark, another a vintner's painted badge. A servant checks each barrel against a tally stick. The notches are compared, the wax seals inspected, and the driver pays a market toll in clipped silver before the cart is allowed further into the yard. You wait under the dripping stone while water works patiently through your cloak. The gatehouse smells of leather smoke and old straw. A rushlight burns in a wall niche, its flame thin and smoky. Unlike beeswax candles near altars and wealthy tables, the rushlight costs little and illuminates less. It seems designed mainly to prove that darkness has not won completely. A clerk emerges from a narrow chamber carrying a wax tablet. His fingers are stained with ink, though no ink is currently required. He asks where you have travelled from, who invited you, what business you claim at the feast, and whether you carry weapons. You admit to a small eating knife. Everyone carries one. A guest who arrives without a knife either intends not to eat or expects to borrow trouble from someone else. The clerk records your answer with a stylus. No one can quite agree whether the gate records serve safety taxation or the steward's entertainment. The older servants insist the ledgers once revealed a smuggler disguised as a pilgrim. Younger servants say the smuggler was merely an uncle who refused to pay for lodging. Both stories improve with ale. The guard asks you to open your cloak. Cold air enters at once, delighted by the invitation. He pats the cloth near your belt, finds the eating knife, and examines its worn wooden handle. He also discovers a sprig of dried rosemary tucked into your pouch. You explain that an alewife gave it to you against bad air. The second guard smiles faintly. Some swear rosemary keeps fever away, sharpens memory, and discourages evil spirits. The guard appears willing to believe only the last claim, perhaps because evil spirits are easier to blame than drainage. Your invitation passes from guard to clerk, from clerk to a servant in green livery, and from that servant to another servant, whose only visible duty is disapproval. Each reads the same few lines. Each looks at you afterward with slightly different disappointment. Near the wall, several villagers wait with baskets of eggs, winter apples, and smoked fish. They have brought supplies ordered for the banquet, yet they are not admitted until each basket is counted. One old woman argues that 12 eggs remain 12 eggs, even when a steward counts badly. The steward disagrees with the calm confidence of a man whose arithmetic is protected by armed guards. A bell rings somewhere beyond the inner court. Servants begin moving more quickly. You glimpse them through the archboys carrying split-wood women balancing folded linen, a groom leading a sweating horse, and 2 kitchen hands wrestling a basket that clucks. The banquet is drawing everything inward like a tide made of meat, candles, cloth, and anxious labour. You remain exactly where you are. The dog sits. Rain taps the wooden gate. Water runs along grooves worn by generations of wheels. Above the gatehouse chamber creaks as someone crosses the floor. You imagine guards sleeping there on wool blankets, their cloaks hung near the chimney, their boots never quite dry. Daily life at a manor begins and ends with doors, who opens them, who locks them, who stands outside, and who possesses the key. At last, the servant in green returns with a wooden token stamped with the household badge. He places it in your palm and tells you not to lose it. The token proves that you have been examined, recorded, and found insufficiently dangerous for the moment. It also determines which yard doorway and table you may approach. Even hospitality arrives divided into compartments. Before you move, another official appears. He is the under-steward wrapped in a fur-trimmed gown that has never met a puddle. His nose is narrow, his chain polished, and his expression suggests that your existence has complicated an otherwise promising afternoon. He asks whether you bring a gift. You had hoped the invitation was enough. After a pause, you produce a small packet of cloves purchased in town. They cost more than your breakfast and less than your dignity. The under-steward weighs the packet in his hand, nods once and passes it to a servant without thanks. Gifts at noble houses are rarely called payment, which makes them much easier to demand. The guard finally steps aside. You pass beneath the oak doors, but only into the outer yard. Stable roofs, storehouses and workshops surround the muddy space. Beyond another passage stands the main house, its windows glowing through the rain. Between you and that warmth, servants cross like pieces on a gaming board, each following rules you do not yet understand. The dog slips through before anyone can stop it. A groom shouts. A goose answers. The dog vanishes behind a stack of firewood with the confident speed of one who has never carried an invitation. You clutch the wooden token, pull your cloak closed, and follow the servant in green across the yard. Behind you, the gate shuts with a wooden thud. Ahead, another door waits, and beside it stand two household women holding brushes, basins, and the unmistakable expressions of people preparing to improve you. The two household women do not introduce themselves. One points toward a bench beneath the eaves, while the other takes your wooden token and holds it to the light as though expecting it to confess. The wind follows you into the covered passage, carrying stable warmth, wet wool, and trampled straw. You sit. Immediately, a brush descends upon your cloak. The first woman works with the brisk patience of someone accustomed to removing mud from people who believe themselves important. Dried clay flakes onto the stones. Damp clay merely changes location. She clicks her tongue at the stain left by the cartwheel and mutters that no respectable guest arrives looking as if he has been rolled from a ditch. The second woman sets a pewter basin on a stool. Steam curls from the water, but only faintly. A servant warmed it near the kitchen fire, then carried it across 2 courtyards, allowing winter to reclaim most of the victory. You wash your hands anyway. Clean hands matter at a noble feast, not because anyone understands invisible illness, but because visible dirt is socially ambitious. Guests will share dishes, cup salt, and sometimes spoons. Fingers will lift bread, meat, fruit, and sauces. A clean appearance, therefore, serves manners rank and the comforting fiction that everyone is healthier than the floor rushes. The woman gives you a cloth scented with lavender and vinegar. You wipe your face and neck. Vinegar is believed to protect against corrupted air, and lavender sweetens what protection cannot manage. Some swear that fragrant herbs stop sickness before it enters the body. Others maintain that a strong enough scent merely prevents you from noticing sickness already present. A bone comb catches immediately. The woman pulls. Your eyes water. She pulls again with the serene expression of a healer removing an arrow, though the danger is mainly a knot formed during 3 days beneath a hood. The comb has narrow teeth for lice and wider teeth for tangles. You try not to wonder which purpose requires more effort. No one can quite agree whether bathing too often strengthens the body or weakens it by opening the pores to harmful air. Wealthy households may keep tubs, scented water, and linen cloths. Yet a complete bath requires servants fuel privacy and optimism. For tonight, washed hands, a scrubbed face, and hair persuaded into obedience must represent civilization. A young page arrives carrying folded clothing. He cannot be more than 16, but his expression already possesses the weary authority of a minor official. Across his arms lies a clean linen shirt, dark wool hose, a russet doublet, and a short gown lined at the collar with rabbit fur. None belongs to you. The household lends them because your own clothes bear too much road and too little status. You are guided behind a hanging cloth stretched across one corner of the passage. The cloth does not reach the floor. Privacy like warm water is available in portions. You remove your damp tunic, cold air tightens across your skin. The linen shirt feels rough but dry, and dryness seems more luxurious than silk. The hose require patience. They are secured with points, small laces tying them to the doublet. One lace knots badly. Another refuses the whole. The page watches through the gap beside the cloth, fearing you will fasten something in a provincial manner. The russet doublet fits tightly through the chest. Fashion prefers a shaped body, whether or not the body agrees. The sleeves narrow at the wrists. The collar presses beneath your jaw. When the short gown is added, the rabbit fur tickles your neck and sheds one pale hair onto your shoulder. The first woman removes it. Appearance here is not decoration alone. Clothing announces income, occupation, loyalty, and proximity to power. Certain fabrics, colors, and ornaments may be restricted by sumptuary rules meant to keep each rank visibly in place. The laws are unevenly enforced, especially against those wealthy enough to ignore them, which is an efficient kind of law. The page circles you. The other woman studies your shoes and sighs. Your leather boots are too muddy for the hall, so a servant scrapes the soles with a blunt knife and rubs the uppers with grease. They remain worn, but now shine where the leather has not cracked. You receive soft overshoes for the interior, a quiet sign that the household values its floors more than your dignity. A small mirror of polished metal is held before you. Your reflection is dim and warped. The russet gown widens one shoulder. The fur collar makes your neck look shorter. Your combed hair lies flat with the obedient sadness of wet hay. You look cleaner, warmer, and almost like someone invited on purpose. Rosewater touches your wrists. Powdered orris root is brushed along the gown. The page offers a pomander, a pierced metal ball containing cloves, cinnamon, and dried peel. You recognize the cloves surrendered at the gate and wonder whether your gift has returned disguised as household generosity. Some wear pomanders against foul air, some against plague, and some against other guests. Even now it is hard to tell whether their greatest value lies in medicine fashion or making a crowded chamber smell briefly less human. A broken nail receives more concern than the damaged cartwheel. A small knife trims the rough edge. Beeswax is rubbed onto your lips against cracking. Your belt is tightened, your eating knife returned, and a linen napkin folded over your arm until the page decides you carry it wrongly. He refolds it and hands it back without explanation. Beyond the passage rises the murmur of arriving guests. Hooves strike stone, servants call names. A bell sounds from the chapel, recalling the note heard beneath the gatehouse. Somewhere near the kitchens the brindled dog barks, once followed by a crash and a furious cook. The women exchanged looks. You pretend not to know the animal. At last, the wooden token is returned. A servant opens the inner door. Warmth touches your face, mixed with beeswax, smoke rushes, and roasting meat. You step forward in borrowed clothes, scrubbed and scented, carrying your knife napkin and the uneasy knowledge that everyone inside will know how little of this appearance truly belongs to you. The inner door closes behind you. Then your eyes adjust. The corridor is narrow, smoky, and busy enough to remind you that comfort in a Tudor household is rarely created for the people doing the creating. A servant in green livery leads you beneath a low arch. You pass storerooms secured with iron locks, a buttery where ale is measured, and a pantry where loaves cool beneath linen cloths. The air changes with every doorway: damp stone warm bread, beeswax, onions, wet wool, then the sweet heaviness of meat roasting somewhere beyond sight. Ahead, the great hall is still being assembled. Trestle tables stand on their sides like folded gates. Benches lean against the walls. Servants move through the chamber carrying boards, baskets, pitchers, and armfuls of fresh rushes. The high roof disappears into soot-dark rafters where smoke from the central hearth gathers. You pause near the threshold. The hall is larger than the village church, though less peaceful and considerably more interested in supper. Tall windows admit a grey winter light. Tapestries cover sections of cold stone. Between the woven forests hang shields, antlers, and one cracked helmet said to have belonged to an ancestor who fought in France. No one can quite agree whether the ancestor returned victorious or simply returned wearing someone else's helmet. A steward claps his hands. At once the trestles are opened. Heavy boards settle across them. Two boys test each table by pressing down with both palms. One board rocks. A folded scrap of leather is pushed beneath the leg. Tudor engineering triumphs. Fresh rushes are scattered across the floor. They smell green and sharp beneath the older scents of smoke and grease, lavender, rosemary, sweet flag, and dried mint are mixed among them, releasing fragrance when stepped upon. In wealthier rooms, rushes may be replaced regularly. In less diligent households, old layers remain beneath new ones, preserving crumbs, bones, spilled drink, insects, and perhaps the complete history of several dinners. Some swear that certain herbs drive away fleas and harmful vapors. Others say fleas merely prefer guests without herbs. You decide not to conduct the experiment personally. A maid kneels near the dais pulling a fishbone from yesterday's covering. She hides it in her apron before the steward notices. Another servant gathers charred wood from the hearth and lays fresh logs across the iron supports. Sparks rise. Heat begins spreading unevenly, warming one side of the room while leaving the walls loyal to winter. The dais stands at the far end beneath a canopy. A long table is placed there for the lord, his family, and the most honoured guests. Its boards receive a linen cloth so white that you immediately fear breathing near it. The lower tables get coarser cloths. Rank can be measured by fabric before anyone sits. The steward walks along the rows with a seating list. He counts spaces, shifts, benches, and mutters names. A guest's place depends upon birth, office, wealth, favour, and kinship. The arrangement resembles a military campaign fought with cushions. One misplaced merchant could insult a knight's ambitious cousin seated too near the dais might spend the evening believing history has finally recognized him. You are guided to a side alcove to wait, but the open arch gives you a full view. Servants place trenchers along the tables. Some are thick slices of stale bread dense enough to hold sauces without surrendering. Others are wooden plates reserved for repeated use. The bread trenchers will absorb fat and gravy during the meal, then may be given to servants, beggars, or dogs. At the word dogs, the brindled animal appears beneath a bench. It carries something pale in its mouth. A kitchen boy lunges. The dog slips between two trestles, circles the hearth, and disappears behind a hanging tapestry. The object may be a turnip. It may be a costly almond paste figure. Those who tell the tale never fully agree. Cups arrive next. Pewter vessels are set at the lower places, while silver cups and shallow bowls gleam on the high table. Shared drinking vessels are common. Courtesy often consists of performing confidence near communal objects. At the centre of the high table, a great salt cellar is positioned like a small fortress. It is carved, polished, and guarded by ceremony. Those seated above the salt possess greater status than those below it. The salt itself is precious, but the object matters almost as much as its contents. It marks the invisible boundary between people who command and people who hope to be remembered. Beeswax candles are fixed into metal branches near the dais. Their pale flames will burn cleaner and sweeter than tallow. Lower in the hall, tallow candles and rushlights wait to smoke gutter and remind everyone that even illumination observes social rank. A servant uses a long taper to test the wicks. One candle sputters, another bends slightly in the warmth. The half-burned candle you noticed beside the inner door is carried forward and placed near the musician's corner, where economy outranks symmetry. Wax is too valuable to waste merely because it has already experienced an evening. Near the wall, a sideboard is dressed with silver dishes, ewers-covered cups, and folded linen. This display is not accidental. Plate demonstrates the household's wealth. Two servants remain beside it, watching every spoon with the devotion usually reserved for saints' relics. The chapel bell sounds again. Outside, daylight fades from grey to blue. Servants light torches in wall brackets. Their flames throw restless shadows across the tapestries, making woven horses run and embroidered trees tremble. Smoke thickens beneath the rafters. The hall begins to glow beneath the smoke and winter gloom. You feel hunger tighten beneath the borrowed doublet, yet no food appears for you. Instead, another linen cloth is smoothed, another bench shifted, another pitcher counted. The feast exists first as labour, order, and waiting. Every bright cup depends upon someone polishing it. Every warm dish requires someone standing near fire. Every scented floor conceals older dirt. At last the steward turns towards the doorway. Voices gather in the corridor. The first guests are coming, dressed in fur, velvet, wool, and expectation. You straighten your napkin, check the wooden token, and watch the empty hall prepare to judge where everyone belongs. The first guests enter beneath the torchlight in a procession of damp cloaks, belts, jewelled caps, and expressions arranged to suggest that winter mud has never touched them. Servants take outer garments at the door. Fur-lined mantles vanish into arms. Shoes are wiped again. Names are announced in tones that make surnames sound as though they conquered a province. You remain near the side alcove, looking neither eager nor lost. The steward consults his seating list. A knight with a scar across one cheek is led towards the dais. A wealthy cloth merchant is directed to a lower table, though not so low that he can complain safely. Two widowed ladies are separated because their families have disputed a boundary hedge for 19 years. A priest is placed near the high table, close enough to be honoured and far enough that no one must surrender the best cushion. Seating is a language. Every step toward the Lord's table speaks of rank. Every bench farther away speaks more quietly. The dais lifts the household's most powerful people above the rest of the hall, where they can be watched while pretending not to notice. Beneath the canopy, the Lord's chair has a carved back and a cushion stuffed with feathers. His nearest guests receive stools or chairs. Most others receive benches and the useful lesson that comfort is hereditary. The servant in green checks your token. He leads you toward the middle of a side table. This is neither triumph nor disaster. You are not close enough to the dais to hear private conversation, yet not so far that the kitchen steam arrives before the food. You are placed above a minor steward's cousin. below an elderly lawyer, and directly across from a young gentleman whose sleeves contain enough embroidered silk to support a village through winter. The gentleman studies your russet gown. You feel the borrowed rabbit fur at your neck. He looks away. The bench is narrow. You sit, leaving space for those not yet arrived. Your trencher waits before you stale with a small pewter cup nearby. The linen cloth is clean but coarse. A wooden spoon rests between two places, suggesting that ownership may become a matter of speed. The great salt cellar stands far ahead, on the high table gleaming like a miniature castle. A smaller salt dish sits near your end but above your position. You are below the salt. The phrase is not geographical. Those above the salt are honored, wealthy, or powerful enough to expect the better cuts of meat and the swift attention of servants. Those below it receive what travels down the table after sharper elbows and stronger claims have done their work. Some swear that salt spilled across a table invites misfortune unless a pinch is thrown over the left shoulder. Others say the gesture blinds the devil waiting there. No one can quite agree why the devil chooses that shoulder, though perhaps the right side is already occupied by a hungry neighbor. A servant places a folded napkin near the lawyer. You receive none. You carry the linen draped over your arm from the dressing passage, so you unfold it discreetly across your lap. The embroidered gentleman notices. He folds his own cloth with care, as though instructing you through silent mercy. More guests arrive. The bench tightens. A broad-shouldered man wearing a chain of office sits at your left. He smells of wet wool cloves and horse. At your right, the elderly lawyer settles with a sigh and immediately claims the shared spoon by resting two fingers upon it. His hands are pale, his nails clean, and one thumb bears a stain from sealing wax. The brindle dog appears beneath the table. It places its chin on your shoe. You do not move. Across the hall, the musicians begin testing pipes and strings. A low note trembles beneath the voices. Servants carry ewers and basins along the tables for hand washing. Warm water scented with rosemary is poured over noble fingers into bowls. Towels follow. At the lower end, the water cools the herbs thin, and the towels acquire memories. When the basin reaches you, you hold your hands above it. The servant pours too quickly. Water splashes onto your cuff. The lawyer lifts his sleeve out of danger without releasing the spoon. Hand washing before the meal is both practical and performative. Guests eat with fingers, share dishes, and tear bread from common loaves. Clean hands show courtesy. Rings, polished nails, and scented water also show wealth, because even virtue becomes more impressive when surrounded by silver. A herald strikes the floor with a staff. Conversation softens. The Lord enters with his household. Everyone rises. Benches scrape stone. You stand half a heartbeat late because the dog is sitting on the hem of your gown. The cloth pulls. You recover before falling. Through the embroidered gentleman's mouth moves in what may be amusement or indigestion. At the dais, the Lord bows towards the chaplain. A blessing begins in Latin. You lower your head. The words drift through smoke and candlelight, familiar in rhythm, even where meaning escapes. Around you, guests remain still. A servant near the hearth kicks a rolling log back into place. Somewhere behind the tapestry, something scratches. The prayer ends. Everyone sits. This time you move quickly enough. The dog avoids the hem. The Lord unfolds his napkin and the hall follows. Cups are filled in descending order. Wine reaches the dais. Better ale moves through the upper tables. Your pewter cup receives small ale, cloudy and mild, safer than uncertain water, and less exciting than the merchant's red wine nearby. A platter appears at the high table. You cannot yet see what it carries, only steam rising beneath candlelight. More platters follow, borne shoulder-high by servants in livery. The guests lean forward. Rank may determine place, but hunger briefly makes the hall equal. Then the first dishes begin moving down the tables. You watch the salt, the Lord, the servants, and the hands of those seated above you. The invisible order of the hall becomes visible in every pause. Food travels outward from power. Choice diminishes with distance. By the time a platter reaches your place, whatever remains will reveal where the household believes you belong. The platter reaches the embroidered gentleman first. He studies its contents with the gravity of a judge, then selects a slice of roasted fowl using the point of his knife. The broad-shouldered officer takes the next piece. The lawyer releases the shared spoon only long enough to secure a portion of thick onion sauce. What remains comes to you. A wing, a strip of dark meat, and several fragments of crust rest in the gravy. You take the wing and pass the platter onward before hunger persuades you to reconsider courtesy. Your eating knife is small, sharp enough for bread, and worn smooth where your thumb rests. Forks exist, but they are rare curiosities, viewed by some as unnecessary and by others as suspiciously delicate. Most food is managed with knives, spoons, bread, and fingers. The trick is not avoiding your hands. The trick is using them as though your hands have been trained by bishops. You hold the wing with 3 fingers. The embroidered gentleman uses only his fingertips. His little finger barely touches the bone. You adjust your grip, trying to make hunger appear elegant. Grease slides toward your cuff. You catch it with the napkin. This is correct, though the lawyer glances at you anyway. At a noble table, a napkin must wipe fingers and lips without becoming a handkerchief, towel pouch, or emergency bandage. You must not rub your face vigorously. You must not polish your cup. You must certainly not blow your nose into the linen, no matter how cold the gatehouse has left you. A sneeze gathers behind your eyes. You stare into the candlelight until it retreats. Small victories sustain civilization. The meat is hot near the bone and cool at the edge. You bite carefully, then remember that teeth should not tear noisily at food held in both hands. You lower the wing, cut a piece with your knife, and lift it with your fingers. Some swear that licking fingers insults the host. Others insist that a discreet touch of the lips is permitted if no sauce is visible. No one can quite agree, because table manners change between courts, households, and people powerful enough to declare whatever they just did correct. A servant offers bread. You take one piece and place it beside your trencher. You do not bite directly from the communal loaf. Instead, you break off a portion with your fingers. Bread is used to gather sauce, steady meat, and rescue morsels that resist the knife. The pewter cup is lifted by the officer beside you. He drinks, wipes the rim with his napkin, and passes it. Shared cups demand trust, or at least obedience. When it reaches you, you examine the rim without appearing to examine it. You turn it slightly and drink from a clean place. The cup must not be drained unless expected. It must not be held too long. It must not be returned with crumbs floating inside. You swallow carefully, wipe the rim, and pass it to the lawyer. He rotates it twice. Apparently, your clean place lacks legal standing. Another dish arrives, a pale pottage, thickened with oats herbs, and something soft that may once have been a root vegetable. The shared spoon is required. The lawyer uses it first, bringing the bowl close to his trencher. He takes one measure and returns the spoon without licking it. You follow. A strand of leek clings to the spoon. You draw it in, quietly, resisting the sound your mouth would make in a less observant barn. Across the table a guest slurps. Conversation pauses around him for half a breath, then resumes with the merciful speed reserved for a man whose cousin commands soldiers. Rules bend near power. A carving knife flashes farther up the table. At important feasts, carving is a skill with its own vocabulary. Different birds and beasts are broken, lifted, displayed, and divided according to custom. A trained carver knows where each joint lies and which portion suits each guest. The task is part service, part performance, and part public proof that no thumb has been mistaken for supper. The carver near the dais raises a capon wing cleanly. Your own wing resists. You cut near the joint. The knife slips against bone and sends a drop of gravy onto the linen cloth. The stain is no larger than a lentil. To you it resembles a map of your social ruin. You cover it with your trencher. The dog beneath the table nudges your ankle. You lower one hand, pretending to adjust your overshoe, and let a scrap of skin fall. The dog catches it without sound. Feeding animals at table is discouraged, especially when the animals do not officially belong indoors. Yet household dogs wander beneath benches collecting bones and loyalties. The brindled creature now considers you both provider and accomplice. The embroidered gentleman notices. He says nothing, but his eyebrow rises. You straighten and place your knife beside the trencher with the blade turned inward. Pointing a blade toward another guest is rude threatening or an invitation to test whether he has misunderstood. Knives are personal tools, and many men carry them daily. The peaceful banquet, therefore, seats dozens of armed people and relies upon napkins to preserve harmony. A servant replaces the shared bowl. Another pours sauce. You wait until those above you take their portions. You do not reach across another person. You do not place elbows broadly on the table. You do not scratch spit belch proudly or inspect anything removed from your teeth. The list of forbidden acts seems chiefly designed around habits everyone has already witnessed. The lawyer finally releases the spoon. The officer drinks again. The half-burned candle near the musicians gutters as a draught enters from the corridor. For a moment the flame bends low and shadows move across the cloth. You keep your hands visible, your knife controlled, your mouth closed while chewing, and your attention divided among food rank and the movements of every neighbor. By the end of the first course, your stomach is less empty, but your shoulders ache from behaving correctly. You have spilled almost nothing, offended no one openly, and fed only one unauthorized dog. At a Tudor banquet, this counts as a promising beginning. The promising beginning does not last long. A servant lifts your used trencher, revealing the small gravy stain you tried to hide. He glances at it, glances at you, and replaces the bread with another slice so thick and stale that it could support a chapel roof. The embroidered gentleman notices the exchange. His expression remains polite. More dishes arrive. First comes a deeper pottage, darker than the earlier bowl, and fragrant with parsley, onions, and pepper. Oats have thickened it until the spoon stands briefly upright. Small pieces of mutton drift beneath the surface, though some are gristle and one may be a turnip wearing an ambitious disguise. You wait. The lawyer takes his portion, the officer follows. When the bowl reaches you, steam warms your face. You lift the shared spoon carefully and let the pottage settle onto your trencher. The stale bread drinks the broth at once, softening around the edges while remaining stubborn in the center. Coarse bread is daily food for most households. Wheat loaves of pale flour belong higher on the social ladder. Darker loaves may contain rye barley, maslin bran, or whatever grain. Survived weather, mildew taxes, and the miller's arithmetic. In lean seasons, ground peas, beans, or even acorns may stretch the flour. Tonight the bread before you is better than famine and worse than memory. You eat slowly in the smoky winter hall. The pottage tastes rich after the road, but the pepper arrives strongly enough to numb your tongue. Spices display wealth, especially when they have travelled through ports, markets, toll gates, and several calculating hands. Pepper, cloves, cinnamon, ginger, mace, and saffron can announce that a household possesses both money and connections. They can also persuade yesterday's meat to speak with a more respectable accent. No one can quite agree whether the mutton was cooked this morning. The officer beside you eats without concern. His position may protect him from rumors, though probably not from indigestion. You swallow another spoonful and remind yourself that boiling is at least an encouraging habit. A platter of smoked fish appears next. The fish are split salted and darkened by smoke. They may be herrings preserved for days when fresh catch is impossible. The church calendar creates many fish days, and households learn to treat salted creatures with devotional persistence. You take a narrow piece. Salt strikes first, smoke second, and fish eventually. You reach for ale, but the shared cup is still with the lawyer. He takes a thoughtful sip. At last, The cup returns. The small ale is cool and faintly sour. It washes the salt from your mouth but leaves behind a cloudy sweetness. Ale is brewed often because it does not keep forever. Malted grain, water, yeast, heat, and household practice create a drink safer than many uncertain wells, though no one at the table discusses tiny causes. Brewers judge by smell, taste, habit, and the behavior of previous batches. Some swear that a sprig of ivy hung outside an alehouse guarantees honest drink. Others say it guarantees only that an alehouse has found a sprig of ivy. A maid brings butter moulded into a small shape. It has softened near the hearth and carries the faint scent of the cloth that wrapped it. The lawyer takes a generous portion. You spread what remains over bread. For a moment, salt, fat, smoke, and warm pottage combine into comfort. Your shoulders loosen. The hall seems less threatening. Music drifts from the corner. Firelight moves across the tapestries. Conversation grows fuller as cups travel. You begin to believe you understand the feast. Wait your turn. Watch your neighbours. Keep the knife inward. Do not insult the salt cellar. Feed the dog only when the embroidered gentleman is distracted. False confidence arrives more quickly than wine. A covered dish is placed before the upper guests, and when the lid rises, a cloud of scented steam rolls along the table. Inside lies meat in a dark sauce of wine vinegar, raisins, breadcrumbs, and spices. The better pieces disappear before the dish reaches you. What remains is soft, heavily seasoned, and difficult to identify. You take one portion. It might be beef, it might be venison, it might be a part of an animal that enjoyed privacy until this evening. The sauce is sweet, sour, hot, and luxurious. Cinnamon lifts above vinegar. Ginger warms your throat. Raisins cling to the meat. The flavor is impressive enough to silence questions. Food in winter depends upon storage. Meat may be salted, smoked, dried, pickled, or kept in cool rooms. Grain waits in chests and storehouses. Apples rest on straw. Roots sleep beneath earth or sand. Cheese hardens. Fish dries near smoke. Every method delays decay, but none signs a treaty with it. The household maintains winter storehouses with thick doors and iron keys. A steward tracks barrels, sacks, and hanging joints. Yet rats ignore rank damp enters walls, and servants sometimes discover that a promising cheese has developed its own government. You chew cautiously. A faint sourness hides beneath the sauce. Perhaps it is the vinegar, perhaps the cook intended it. Even now it is hard to tell whether strong seasoning masks age or merely celebrates expense. Tudor diners value spices for taste, medicine, display, and balance within the body. Foods are described as hot, cold, moist, or dry, and meals may be arranged to correct temperaments. Pepper warms, lettuce cools, wine strengthens. Too much of nearly anything is blamed after the guest becomes ill. The brindled dog noses your knee. You lower a fragment of uncertain meat. The dog sniffs it, then looks up at you without eating. This is not reassuring. Across the table, the Embroidered gentleman smiles for the first time. He has seen the refusal. You place the remaining morsel beneath a crust of bread and take a long drink of ale. Another platter approaches brighter and richer than the last. Your hunger has softened, but the banquet is only beginning to display its abundance. Heat presses beneath the doublet, smoke gathers in your hair, salt dries your lips, deep inside your stomach pottage, fish, butter, ale, and mysterious meat begin negotiating terms that none intends to honour. You sit straighter because everyone else does, then you reach for the next dish. The next dish never reaches your hand. Before the platter can pass the lawyer, a crash sounds behind the tapestry, followed by barking, and the clatter of metal bowls. Conversation falters. The musicians continue playing. Noble feasts reward rhythm more reliably than curiosity. The brindled dog shoots from beneath the hanging cloth. A string of sausages trails behind it. The kitchen boy appears a heartbeat later, red-faced and carrying a wooden ladle like a weapon. The dog darts beneath your bench, loops around the officer's boots, and escapes through a side doorway. The boy follows. You feel every eye near your table turn toward you, perhaps because the animal has chosen your shoes as refuge. The embroidered gentleman lifts one eyebrow. You rise before anyone can accuse you of ownership. The movement is easy to justify. Your cup needs refilling, your hands are greasy, and the heat beneath the borrowed doublet has become oppressive. A servant passing with an empty basin gestures toward the side passage. You slip after him, carrying your napkin and a dignity now tied loosely to a runaway sausage. The passage beyond the hall narrows sharply. Smoke hangs under the beams. The floor changes from rush-covered stone to packed earth, darkened by water and grease. Servants squeeze past with trays balanced at shoulder height. You flatten yourself against the wall while two scullions carry a copper pot large enough to baptize an ox. The kitchens open before you in a blaze of labour. 3 hearths burn along the far wall. Iron hooks, chain spits, and cauldrons hang above the flames. A boy turns one spit by hand, his face shining with sweat. At another hearth, a small dog runs inside a wooden wheel connected to the roasting mechanism. Each step keeps the spit moving. The animal trots with the solemn expression of a monk assigned to a fragrant penance. Some households use turn-spit dogs because boys tire and servants complain. Some swear the dogs know Sundays and hide before church bells ring, fearing work. No one can quite agree whether this proves intelligence, devotion, or knowledge of household schedules. The air tastes of onions, fat, smoke yeast, and singed feathers. Near one table, women chop herbs with broad knives. Parsley, sage, hyssop, and rosemary lie beside garlic and leeks. Another servant pounds almonds in a stone mortar, adding water slowly to make almond milk for sauces and fasting dishes. The pestle rises and falls with a patient thud. A cook in a stained apron stands before a row of pies. Their crusts are thick, high-sided and hard enough to survive handling. These pastry coffins protect fillings during baking and travel. The crust may be eaten, given away, or discarded, depending upon its quality. One pie leaks gravy through a crack. The cook seals it with dough and the confidence of a mason repairing a wall during rain. You step aside as a servant carries in a basket of eggs, another brings firewood. Nothing in the kitchen rests. Water must be drawn, ash-swept knives sharpened, birds plucked herbs, stripped bread sliced, sauces strained, and platters warmed before food enters the hall. Every course admired beneath candlelight begins here in heat, and work that stains hands faster than lavender can clean them. The brindled dog crouches beneath the preparation table. The sausages are gone. Its expression offers no confession. The kitchen boy sees you and points. You raise both hands. You explain that the dog belongs to no one. The boy answers that this makes it everyone's problem. This may be the clearest statement of household law you have heard all evening. A scullion kneels near a tub scrubbing a pot with sand and reeds. Hot water is scarce because heating it consumes fuel, and grease resists polite requests. Sand scours the metal. Ash helps cut fat. Cloths are boiled when time allows, though tonight time has been invited to the feast and seated above the salt. Beyond the hearths lies a larder with meat hooks and shelves.
The door stands open while servants move in and out. Salted joints hang from beams. Cheeses
rest beneath cloth. Barrels hold ale vinegar and preserved fish. A shallow tray contains spices measured by a clerk who watches cinnamon as though each shaving were silver. In many households, spices remain under lock because cooks can steal, servants can trade, and mice have expensive taste. A grey cat sits beside a grain chest. It ignores you, the dog, and the general collapse of order. Cats are valued for hunting vermin, though some whisper that a cat crossing a kitchen at the wrong hour foretells broken crockery or quarrels. Considering the bowls already on the floor, prophecy has arrived late and expects praise. At the main table, a cook tastes sauce from a spoon. He adds vinegar. He tastes again. He adds honey, then pepper. The sauce appears to be negotiating for a new identity. You watch a servant skim foam from a cauldron. Another strains broth through cloth. Nearby, a plucked bird lies ready for stuffing with herbs, breadcrumbs, and dried fruit. The labour is enormous, yet the hall sees only polished platters and steaming lids. Noble abundance depends upon tired backs, burned fingers, and people eating crusts after midnight. A bell rings from the great hall. Every cook stiffens. The next course is required. Platters are loaded, sauces are poured, garnishes are arranged. One servant places feathers around a roasted bird, so it resembles its living form, an impressive display, unless viewed from the bird's perspective. The kitchen boy grabs for the brindled dog. The dog slips between your legs. You stumble into a basket of rushes but remain upright. A cook shouts at you to move, so you seize the dog by the loose skin at its neck and lift it long enough for the boy to take hold. The animal looks betrayed. You understand the feeling. A servant thrusts a warm platter into your hands, mistaking you for help. There is no graceful way to refuse. You turn towards the passage, carrying roasted meat through smoke and torchlight, while the kitchen surges behind you. By the time you re-enter the hall, you know exactly how the feast is made. You also know enough to fear the next bite. You carry the warm platter through the side passage with both hands, trying not to let the borrowed sleeves brush the sauce. Steam rises beneath your chin. The roasted meat has been glazed until its surface shines darkly, and sprigs of rosemary lie around it like a little green hedge protecting a very dead estate. A servant sees you approaching and waves urgently toward the high table. You obey. For several alarming steps, you become part of the banquet's machinery. Guests turn as you pass. Candles throw light across the platter. The carved salt cellar glitters ahead, and the Lord Steward watches your progress with the careful expression of a man who values silver dishes more than human balance. You set the platter before the carver. Only then does the steward notice that you are a guest. His eyes move from your borrowed gown to your napkin, then to the kitchen doorway. You prepare an explanation, but the carver lifts the lid of a nearby sauce bowl, releasing such a wave of cinnamon and wine that suspicion is briefly distracted by appetite. The steward points you back toward your place. You return along the table. The embroidered gentleman shifts his bench to let you pass. He smiles faintly, perhaps because you have carried his supper, perhaps because the household has accidentally employed you without wages. Tudor hospitality contains many opportunities for advancement, most of them involving heavier objects. Your seat remains warm. The lawyer still guards the spoon. The officer has acquired another cup. Before the roasted dish is served, a household servant cuts a small portion from it. He tastes the meat, waits, then swallows. Another servant samples the sauce. At the high table, this is not merely greed disguised as duty. Noble households fear poison, especially when politics, inheritance, marriage, and old resentments sit together beneath one roof. The taster stands quietly. Everyone pretends not to watch him. Nothing happens. This does not prove much. Some poisons act slowly, some fears act instantly, and some tasters have strong stomachs developed through years of household cooking. Still the Lord nods, and the carving begins. The knife enters the roast. Slices fall onto silver dishes. The best pieces go towards the dais. Darker cuts and edges move downward. By the time the platter reaches your table, the glaze has thickened and the rosemary hedge has been trampled by spoons. The officer takes a broad slice. The lawyer chooses a smaller one, then studies the sauce before allowing it near his trencher. The embroidered gentleman touches a morsel with the tip of his knife and lifts it toward his nose. You do the same. It smells of cloves, pepper, vinegar, and smoke. Beneath those scents lies meat. Probably. No one can quite agree whether heavy spices are used mainly to display wealth, aid digestion, balance bodily humors, or conceal ingredients that have spent too long in a winter storehouse. The answer may be all four, which is efficient in the way only expensive uncertainty can be. You take one bite. The surface is sweet from honey, sharp from vinegar, and hot with pepper. The meat beneath is dense but tender. You chew slowly, waiting for your tongue, stomach, or conscience to object. Across the hall, a servant carries a covered cup to the Lord. Before it is opened, the seal is examined. The cupbearer pours a little wine into a shallow vessel and tastes it. Silver is favored for noble service because some believe it reacts against poison or reveals corruption. A silver spoon may darken a cup, may sweat, or a stone set into a drinking vessel may change color. Some swear that unicorn horn can neutralize poison. Objects sold as unicorn horn are more likely to be narwhal, tusk, carved bone, or the remains of someone's optimism. Even so, powdered horn is kept in wealthy cabinets, tested against suspicious drinks, and valued at sums that would feed several villages. A poison that survives such expense is considered almost impolite. Near the dais, the Lord wears a small charm beneath his chain. It may contain a saint's relic, a scrap of scripture, or a stone believed to resist venom. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the charm belonged to his father or was purchased from a traveling physician with unusually white teeth. You touch the dried rosemary still hidden in your pouch. It feels less impressive now. The meat platter returns for another pass. This time you decline. The officer does not. He eats with the calm confidence of a man who assumes danger will respect his office. A new dish arrives, small birds baked beneath pastry, their bones delicate and their seasoning fierce. The crust has absorbed butter and gravy. You break a corner, releasing steam scented with sage and mace. The dog is absent, probably imprisoned near the kitchens or negotiating release through stolen food. You miss its judgment. The lawyer examines his portion for discoloration. Poison fears encourage rituals that appear sensible until everyone begins testing dinner with gemstones. Servants may watch for strange smells, unexpected powders, damaged seals, or unfamiliar hands near a dish. Kitchens can be locked. Food may be covered while carried. Trusted officers control keys to the pantry, buttery, and spice stores. Yet a household is crowded. Cooks, scullions, pages, grooms, clerks, visitors, musicians, vendors, and servants move through passages all day. Ingredients pass through markets and ports. Barrels change hands, water comes from wells, meat hangs in larders, even without malice. Supper has many chances to become dangerous. You bite into the pastry bird. A tiny bone catches between your teeth. You remove it discreetly and place it beneath the trencher. Choking is a more immediate threat than poison, though far less flattering to family legend. The half-burned candle near the musicians flares, then settles. Smoke curls over the tables. The carver's knife flashes again. At the high end, silver vessels gleam beside charms, seals, tasters, and anxious eyes. At your place, protection consists of caution, rosemary, and the hope that anyone planning murder has chosen someone seated above the salt. You swallow. You breathe slowly and keep both hands visible. Your stomach remains quiet. For now, that is the closest thing to safety the banquet offers. For now, safety tastes faintly of rosemary and pepper. Then the cupbearers begin another circuit. The officer beside you lifts his pewter cup before it is full, and the servant pours ale to the rim. Across the table, the embroidered gentleman receives wine red and clear enough to catch the candlelight. The lawyer accepts a smaller measure, though he watches the vessel as carefully as he watched the meat. You hope the next cup will pass you by. It does not. A servant fills yours with stronger ale than before. The smell is warm, yeasty, and slightly sweet. You take a cautious sip. It reaches your empty spaces, quickly softening the edges of the hall. Smoke seems gentler. The benches seem broader. Even the rabbit fur at your neck becomes less irritating. This is how the evening begins negotiating. At the high table, the lord raises a silver cup. Conversation falls away in ripples. He offers a toast to the king, to the household, to old alliances, and to several people whose names you do not know. Everyone stands. You stand too. The dog is no longer beneath your hem, but habit makes you check. Cups rise. You drink. The first toast is simple enough. The second follows before you sit comfortably. It honors a marriage arranged between two families. The third praises a visiting knight. The fourth remembers a dead uncle who appears to have been more agreeable after death. Tudor drinking customs demand attention. Refusing a toast may appear insulting. Drinking too little may suggest distrust. Drinking too much may expose ambition, resentment, poor judgment, or an inability to remain upright in borrowed clothes. You attempt the narrow path between offence and collapse. The officer notices your careful sips. He taps your cup with one finger and smiles. His expression is friendly, which is dangerous. He proposes a private toast to good roads and dry boots. Neither has existed today, but you drink anyway. Ale is brewed in different strengths. Small ale serves daily thirst. Stronger ale and beer belong to celebration, hospitality, and the gradual dismantling of sensible decisions. Wine travels farther and costs more, arriving in barrels from France, Spain, or the Rhineland. Sweet wines are prized. Spiced wine may be warmed and served with sugar, cinnamon, ginger, and cloves. The embroidered gentleman receives a dark, fragrant drink. He offers the cup across the table not to share from politeness alone, but to test whether you recognize quality. You accept. The wine is warmer than expected. Cinnamon rises first, then sweetness, then a sharp heat that travels down your throat and settles behind your borrowed doublet. Some swear that placing an amethyst in a cup prevents drunkenness. The stone's name is linked with sobriety in old belief, and wealthy drinkers may wear it while consuming enough wine to test the legend thoroughly. No one can quite agree whether the amethyst fails, the wine wins, or the wearer simply forgets the experiment. The lawyer wears an amethyst ring. He is now telling the same story twice. Musicians begin a livelier tune. Pipes climb above the murmur. A drum marks a steady pulse. Servants refill cups before they are empty, because an empty vessel might imply poor hospitality. You begin covering yours with 2 fingers when the cupbearer approaches. The officer removes your fingers. He insists that a guest must not insult the house. You allow half a measure. The servant pours a full one. Hospitality triumphs again. At the dais, a young nobleman calls for a health to the ladies present. Everyone rises once more. Benches scrape. Linen shifts. A guest near the lower end stands too quickly and knocks his knee against the table. The trenchers jump, but no cup falls. He bows as though the movement were planned. You drink. Warmth spreads into your hands, which have remained cold since the river mist. Your shoulders loosen. The great hall sways only when you turn your head too quickly. The half-burned candle near the musicians has become 2 candles, then politely agrees to be one again. Conversation grows less guarded. The officer tells you that the Lord Steward cheats at tables. The lawyer declares that no steward cheats unless the rules are poorly drafted. The embroidered gentleman claims that rules are written mainly so skilled men can step around them without muddying their shoes. A servant brings Hippocras wine strained through spices and sugar. The liquid passes through a cloth bag often called Hippocrates' sleeve, though the physician himself would probably object to becoming part of the drink service. The result is smooth, fragrant, and treacherously pleasant. Across the hall, 2 men pledge brotherhood over a shared vessel. At another table, a merchant drinks to a contract not yet signed. Toasts can honor friendship, seal promises, display loyalty, or corner a guest into public agreement. A raised cup becomes a small oath. Refusal speaks as loudly as acceptance. The officer proposes another toast, this time to your safe arrival. Several nearby guests look toward you. You cannot decline a toast to yourself without seeming either rude or suspiciously immortal. You stand. The room follows a heartbeat later, though only those at your section of the table understand why. You raise the cup, thank the company, and drink more than intended, because everyone is watching. When you sit, the bench arrives slightly to the left of where you remember leaving it. You correct with dignity. The brindled dog reappears under the table. A loop of rope hangs from its neck, chewed clean through. It rests its head on your knee and smells faintly of sausage. You envy its sobriety. The cupbearer approaches again. This time you slide your cup behind the lawyer's trencher. The servant fills the lawyer's vessel instead. The lawyer does not notice. He raises it, praises moderation, and drinks. You place your own cup back before you. No one sees. Perhaps survival at a Tudor banquet depends less upon strength than upon knowing when to hide a cup behind a man wearing an amethyst ring. The music swells. Laughter rises into the rafters. Wine gleams red beneath the candles. Ale passes from hand to hand. Your face is warm, your judgment pleasantly unreliable. And somewhere beyond the smoke, servants begin clearing space for entertainment. The servants carry away several benches, opening a broad space between the hearth and the lower tables. Guests twist in their seats to watch. Cups remain close at hand. A pair of musicians step forward first. One carries a lute, another raises a pipe, while the drummer settles onto a stool. They bow toward the dais, wait for the Lord's nod, and begin a tune light enough to lift conversation without demanding silence. The melody circles through the hall. You recognize none of it yet. The rhythm feels familiar, like hooves on a dry road or rain tapping shutters. The embroidered gentleman keeps time with one finger. The officer hums beneath his breath. The lawyer attempts to clap, but enters each measure slightly late and blames the acoustics. Then the jester appears. He wears a patched coat divided into red-green and faded yellow. Small bells hang from his hood. In his hand he carries a wooden spoon polished smooth from use, though whether it serves as prop weapon or legal instrument remains unclear. He bows deeply. At first his jokes are aimed safely upward. He praises the Lord's generosity so extravagantly that the compliment folds into mockery. He claims the roast arrived so slowly because the kitchen feared it might be promoted above the steward. The Lord laughs. Everyone else laughs after checking that he has done so. Court fools and household entertainers possess uncertain freedom. Some may speak truths others cannot safely utter. Some are protected because their foolishness is considered natural, performed, or divinely permitted. Others survive simply because powerful people enjoy hearing insults delivered in bells. No one can quite agree whether this fool was born to the household hired at a fair or won in a wager involving a bishop's mule. The tale changes depending upon who has been drinking. The jester moves among the tables. He imitates the gate guard's suspicious stare, the steward's measured walk, and the carver's solemn handling of poultry. Each performance is accurate enough to be dangerous. Servants hide smiles behind their hands. The steward does not. You lower your gaze. Attention is safest when it belongs to someone else. A storyteller replaces the musicians near the hearth. He wears a dark wool cloak and carries a staff decorated with pilgrim badges. His voice begins low, telling of a knight who follows a white stag into a forest where the trees whisper saints' names. The hall quiets. Even the officer listens. Stories travel along roads with pilgrims, merchants, soldiers, priests, and wandering performers. A tale may begin in France, cross the sea, acquire a hermit in Kent, lose a dragon in London, and arrive at a manor insisting that every event occurred 3 fields away. Some swear that white animals guide worthy travellers toward holy places. Others say they lead hunters into bogs. The storyteller offers no practical distinction. For a few moments the banquet becomes still enough that you hear fat hiss in the kitchen passage and winter rain touch the windows. The half-burned candle near the musicians leans lower, its wax running down one side. Then the jester returns. He has found a new subject. You realize this when the wooden spoon points toward your borrowed russet gown. He asks whether you are a guest servant pilgrim or unusually well-dressed turnip seller. Laughter moves along the lower tables. You smile because refusing to smile would make the joke larger. The embroidered gentleman watches with open amusement. The jester notices the brindled dog beneath your bench. He bends, studies it, then announces that at last someone in the hall has chosen a companion of equal rank. More laughter follows. You consider hiding behind the lawyer, but the lawyer has begun enjoying the performance and offers little structural protection. The jester asks how you reached the manor. You answer that you walked. He looks at your scraped boots and declares this the evening's first believable statement. The lord laughs again. You laugh too. Public embarrassment is safer when treated as a shared gift. A guest who becomes angry may seem proud, humorless, or guilty of whatever joke has been made. A guest who answers cleverly may win approval. A guest who answers too cleverly may embarrass the fool, which creates an entirely different danger. When asked whether the dog belongs to you, you say that it follows only the finest people. The jester looks at the animal. The dog leaves your side and trots directly toward the high table. The hall erupts. Even the steward smiles, though perhaps only because the dog has abandoned you. The jester presses the wooden spoon to his heart and bows. You have survived the exchange with dignity, reduced, but not destroyed. Next come two tumblers. They enter, carrying hoops and wooden balls. One walks on his hands while the other balances a bowl on his head. Their clothing is plain, their movements controlled. They perform between cups, candle stands, and benches, where one bad landing could convert amusement into household accounting. A ball rolls toward the lawyer. He stops it with his shoe and looks proud enough to claim authorship of the trick. The tumblers continue. One passes through a hoop barely wider than his shoulders. Another balances 3 knives by their handles. The blades catch the torchlight. Guests lean forward, pleased by danger occurring to someone else. At the edge of the hall, servants wait with folded cloths and fresh pitchers. Entertainment provides them no rest. Cups still empty. Grease still spills. Fires still need wood. A musician may finish a song, but a scullion's evening has no final note. The jester circles once more. This time he chooses a merchant whose velvet cap sits too high. The merchant protests. The protest becomes funnier than the original joke, and the hall rewards it. You watch with relief as humiliation moves away like bad weather crossing a field. The dog returns beneath your bench. You scratch one torn ear. Around you, laughter rises into the rafters. Bells shake on the jester's hood, and music begins again. Yet the tables are being shifted farther back. Servants clear a wider floor. Guests straighten their gowns and adjust their shoes. The entertainment is no longer something you will merely watch. Someone near the dais calls for dancing. Someone near the dais calls for dancing, and the musicians answer before anyone has time to pretend fatigue. The pipe rises first above the murmur. The drum follows with a measured beat. A servant carries away the last bench from the open floor, while another sweeps loose rushes toward the walls. Guests begin standing. You remain seated. For one hopeful moment, the officer beside you rises and pulls you up by the sleeve. The embroidered gentleman smooths his cuffs. The lawyer announces that dancing is excellent for digestion, though he intends to observe its benefits in others. The first dancers gather in 2 lines facing one another. Men bow. Women dip carefully beneath sleeves, jewels, veils, and layers of fabric. The formal steps appear simple from a distance: forward, pause, turn, retreat. Up close, every motion carries rules. Hands must meet without grasping, eyes must lift without staring. Bows must be deep enough to honor and shallow enough to preserve balance. You are placed opposite a lady in a dark blue gown trimmed with fur. She studies your borrowed russet sleeves and offers a composed smile. She smells faintly of rosewater smoke and winter air trapped in wool. The music begins. You step forward. She steps back. You were meant to step back. The correction happens quickly. You turn the error into a bow and hope the musicians did not see. Musicians see everything. Their livelihood depends upon continuing as though nothing happened. A Tudor dance is less a burst of motion than a public negotiation. Rank controls who partners whom. Fashion controls how far knees can bend. Courtesy controls where hands may rest. The floor, meanwhile, offers patches of grease beneath the fresh rushes. You move left. Your overshoe slides half an inch. The lady's hand tightens against yours, then releases before anyone can call it rescue. You recover and continue. She does not laugh. This kindness feels more dangerous than laughter, because it may require repayment. The hall has grown hotter. The central hearth throws waves of warmth across the dancers. Torches burn along the walls. Beeswax candles soften in their holders, bending beneath their own weight. Tallow candles smoke and spit lower down the hall. Heat gathers beneath wool, linen, fur padding, and every fashionable decision made since dawn. Your doublet presses against your ribs. The rabbit fur collar, charming in the cold passage, now feels like a small animal attempting revenge. You turn again. The lady's skirt moves in a broad circle, brushing the scented rushes. Heavy gowns are shaped by layers beneath them, and sleeves may be tied, pinned, or changed to display wealth. Men wear fitted doublets, hose gowns, caps, chains, and enough cloth to ensure that dancing remains a test of loyalty to fashion. No one can quite agree whether one courtier fainted at a midsummer dance because of heat, tight clothing, too much wine, or admiration for dramatic timing. All 4 explanations seem reasonable. The line advances. You bow. You retreat. The embroidered gentleman passes on your left with perfect control. His feet land silently. His sleeves remain untouched by sweat. He seems constructed specifically for rooms with witnesses. The officer passes on your right. He is less graceful, but rank gives weight to every step. When he turns late, others adjust around him. A powerful man is rarely out of time. The music has merely misunderstood. Applause rises. You hope to return to the bench, but a second dance begins before the floor clears. This one is livelier. Partners change. Hands join in a circle. The jester appears between two respectable guests and dances with exaggerated dignity, bells chiming around his hood. You are drawn into the ring. The circle turns beneath the rafters. Smoke hangs above like a dark canopy. Each time you pass the hearth, your face warms sharply. Each time you near the outer wall, cold stone breathes through the tapestries. The hall becomes a wheel of heat and chill music and cloth candlelight and shadow. Your partner now is a merchant's widow wearing green velvet sleeves. She tells you to watch the drummer rather than the dancers. You obey. The beat steadies your feet. Forward together, back turn. For several measures you perform correctly. Confidence returns. This is unwise. During the next turn, your borrowed shoe catches the edge of a rush mat. You stumble into the lawyer who has wandered onto the floor despite his earlier caution. He catches your elbow with one hand and protects his cup with the other. Not a drop spills. He looks more surprised by this success than anyone. Some swear that dancing counterclockwise invites bad luck, particularly near holy days or after a bell has rung unexpectedly. Others insist that only witches and confused wedding guests care about direction. Even now it is hard to tell whether such warnings preserve souls or merely prevent circles from colliding. The musicians quicken. Breathing becomes work. Your linen shirt clings between your shoulders. The fur-lined gown feels twice its weight. Around you, painted faces shine with heat. Perfume fades beneath smoke-ale wax and human effort. Yet no one of rank admits discomfort. Fans appear in jeweled hands. Sleeves flutter. Smiles remain fixed. At the high table, the Lord watches. So does the steward. Every stumble can become gossip. Every choice of partner may suggest favor. Every glance may be remembered by someone who profits from remembering. Dancing looks like pleasure, but it is also display alliance, competition, and evidence gathered to music. You soften your steps. The widow in green nods once. The embroidered gentleman offers an approving smile. Then the half-burned candle near the musicians collapses. Warm wax spills across its metal tray. The flame flares, trembles, and goes out beneath a servant's cloth. For a breath, the corner darkens. The music continues. So do you. At last, the final note falls. Partners bow. The circle opens. You step backward toward the table's chest rising beneath the tight doublet face. Warm hair damp and knees quietly grateful. The dog meets you beside the bench. You sit with great care. Around the hall, guests call for more wine servants, relight candles, and the air grows thicker. Beneath the pleasant ache of dancing, your stomach gives a slow and unmistakable turn. Beneath the pleasant ache of dancing, your stomach gives an unmistakable turn. At first you pretend it is nothing. The hall is warm, the music is loud, and everyone around you appears determined to continue enjoying the evening. You lift your cup, but do not drink. The ale smells suddenly sweeter than before. The brindled dog watches you. Its judgment has become intolerably accurate. You place one hand against the tight front of the borrowed doublet. Beneath linen, wool, and laces, pottage, smoked fish, butter-spiced meat, pastry, strong ale, and hippocras have formed a council. None seems willing to yield the floor. The officer drops heavily onto the bench beside you. The wood shifts. Your stomach shifts with it. Across the table, the embroidered gentleman fans himself with a folded napkin. His hair has begun curling near the temples. The lawyer, still wearing his amethyst ring, explains that warm wine improves digestion. His face suggests that his own digestion has not reviewed the argument. Smoke gathers lower now. The central hearth burns strongly, but the air above the tables barely moves. Torches consume what freshness enters through the doors. Candles release wax and soot. Damp cloaks, hot bodies, spilled ale, roasted fat, perfume, wet rushes, and dog combine into an atmosphere thick enough to chew. You loosen the top fastening of your gown. The page who dressed you would disapprove, but the page is not currently negotiating with your supper. A servant pushes through carrying a basin. Another follows with cloths. At the end of the hall, a guest has become unwell behind a tapestry where privacy is provided mostly by collective refusal to look. The musicians soften their tune. No one stops eating. Feasts are expensive. An uncomfortable guest is expected to recover quietly enough not to waste them. You stand and edge towards the wall. The bench traps your hose for a moment. The officer shifts his weight, freeing the fabric while nearly sending the lawyer's cup onto the floor. The lawyer catches it and praises Providence. The officer praises his elbow. Near the wall, you breathe more easily, though cold seeps through the tapestry. Woven hunters pursue woven deer beneath your shoulder. Behind the cloth bare stone sweats with winter damp. Something bites your ankle. You resist scratching. Something bites again. Fresh rushes and scented herbs may improve the floor, but they do not create miracles. Fleas travel in straw blankets, clothing fur and bodies. Lice prefer hair and seams. Bedbugs wait in wooden frames and wall cracks. Noble rank may improve one's mattress, yet insects show an independent understanding of hierarchy. Some swear that pennyroyal wormwood or lavender drives fleas away. Others rub clothing with herbs, lay fern beneath mattresses, or keep dogs close so the creatures bite a more convenient companion. The brindled dog sits on your foot. You feel morally compromised. A household woman notices your pale face and approaches. She carries iron keys at her belt and dried herbs in one hand. Without asking permission, she presses 2 fingers against your wrist. She counts your pulse. Then she studies your eyes, tongue, and complexion. Tudor health rests upon balance. The body is believed to contain 4 humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Food, weather, age, temperament, sleep, and the stars may disturb them. Too much heat, coldness, moisture, or dryness can turn a feast into a diagnosis. The woman declares that your stomach is overheated. This seems obvious after dancing beside a hearth, but she means something grander. She gives you dried mint and fennel seed to chew. Mint may calm the stomach. Fennel may ease wind. The remedy tastes bitter, sharp, and cleaner than the banquet air. No one can quite agree whether such cures work because of their natural qualities, divine blessing habit, or the desire to believe that chewing a garden will repair 6 courses of supper. You chew anyway. The woman asks whether you have been bled recently. You say no. Her expression suggests that this omission explains nearly everything. Bloodletting may restore balance, especially when a physician judges the body too full or hot. Leeches can draw blood gently from selected places. A blade and basin work more directly. Almanacs sometimes advise which days and body parts are favorable because even veins must respect the calendar. You assure her that mint is already succeeding. It is not, but the lie protects you from medical enthusiasm. A door near the screen's passage opens and cold air enters. You move toward it. Several guests have gathered near the exit, each pretending to admire the courtyard while seeking relief. Outside, rain has stopped. The yard glistens beneath torchlight. Horse breath rises near the stables. Somewhere beyond the roofs, monastery bells sound the late hour. Their steady notes pass through the smoky warmth and remind you of the road before the manor when your greatest concern was mud. A servant directs you toward a garderobe. The small chamber projects from an outer wall. Inside, a wooden seat opens over a chute descending toward a pit or drain. The air is cold enough to discourage lingering, which may be the design's finest achievement. Cloth moss or hay serves where softer paper does not. You return relieved but humbled. Near the doorway stands a ceramic chamber pot painted with flowers. Such vessels wait beneath beds behind curtains or in corners. In crowded halls, modesty depends upon timing servants and everyone's willingness to misunderstand certain sounds. Back at the table, the banquet continues. Bones pile on trenchers. Ale stains the cloth. The half-burned candle has been replaced, but wax clings to the stand. The lawyer is asleep upright. The officer argues with the jester about a horse neither has seen. The embroidered gentleman remains composed, though he scratches beneath one sleeve. You sit carefully. The dog curls beneath your knees. Mint cools your mouth. Fennel settles warmly in your belly. Perhaps the remedy helps. Perhaps the worst has passed. Even now it is hard to tell whether recovery comes from herbs, cold air, or refusing another cup. A servant announces that chambers are being prepared. You look toward the dark corridor beyond the hall. Rest sounds merciful. Then you remember that noble households rarely waste a bed on one person. Then you remember that noble households rarely waste a bed on one person. A servant with a candle leads you from the great hall before that thought can settle comfortably. The corridor beyond is darker, colder and quieter than the room you leave behind. Music fades behind oak doors. Laughter becomes a distant murmur. Your borrowed shoes whisper over stone worn smooth by generations of servants carrying trays, water linen, and secrets. The brindled dog follows. The servant notices, but says nothing. By now the animal seems less an intruder than a minor household official. You climb a narrow stair. The candle flame bends in draughts, slipping through arrow slits and cracks, around shutters. On one landing, a tapestry lifts from the wall as though someone is breathing behind it. You stop. The servant keeps walking. The sleeping chambers lie above the hall, where smoke and warmth rise through the building. The best rooms belong to the lord, his family, and honoured guests. Lesser visitors are placed according to rank and space. Servants sleep in corners, lofts, kitchens, passages, and wherever work releases them. Your chamber contains 2 beds. Then you see 6 people. A merchant removes his cap near the hearth. 2 clerks unlace their doublets. A young knight sits on a stool while his servant pulls off muddy boots. The 6th sleeper is already beneath a blanket facing the wall with the determination of someone unwilling to acknowledge newcomers. A small fire glows in the hearth, though most of its heat travels directly upward. Shutters cover the window. Wind finds the gaps anyway. One bed has a wooden frame, ropes beneath the mattress, and curtains faded from red to brown. The other is a truckle bed pulled from beneath it. Both mattresses are stuffed with straw. The larger bed has a feather layer on top, thin but prestigious. You are assigned to the larger bed. So are the merchant and 1 clerk. Sharing beds is ordinary. Travellers, servants, relatives, and strangers lie together because mattresses, blankets, fuel, and chambers cost money. Privacy remains a luxury measured in curtains. No one can quite agree whether sleeping beside another person feels safer because of warmth and protection from night spirits or merely unavoidable. The distinction matters less when winter enters through the shutters. You remove the short gown and fold it over a stool. The rabbit fur collar has collected smoke and 1 pale pastry crumb. Your borrowed doublet follows. You loosen the points, tying hose to clothing, keeping more linen on than comfort prefers. Wealthy people own night garments, but many sleep in shirts or whatever preserves warmth. The merchant claims the side nearest the hearth. The clerk claims the side nearest the wall. You receive the middle. This arrangement offers warmth and no escape. A servant enters carrying a brass warming pan filled with embers. She slides it beneath the blankets, warming the linen without burning it. Some swear dried rosemary placed with the embers drives away bad dreams. Others say it merely makes scorched blankets smell ceremonial. The servant removes the pan. Everyone approaches the bed. The mattress rustles loudly as the merchant climbs in. The ropes beneath it groan. The clerk follows, turning toward the wall. You ease between them, bringing the wool blanket to your chest. The bed sags toward the center. All three of you slide together. The merchant apologizes. The clerk does not. A wooden headrest lies beneath the pillow to keep elaborate hair and nightcaps arranged. You avoid it and use folded linen instead. The pillow smells faintly of lavender and more strongly of whoever slept here yesterday. Something moves beneath the straw mattress. You become still. It moves again. The merchant says it is probably a mouse. This does not improve the room. Some households place rue wormwood or fleabane beneath bedding to discourage insects. Others beat mattresses or expose blankets to frost. The bed curtains preserve warmth, whispers fleas, and every smell produced by three tired guests. The brindled dog scratches at the door. You listen to its claws. Someone outside opens the door, though no servant appears. The dog enters, circles twice, and lies beside the hearth. The knight objects. The merchant says dogs keep spirits away. The clerk says they attract fleas. The dog sighs. Its opinion appears final. Before the candle is extinguished, the knight's servant points toward a small wooden box fixed beside the door. Behind its cloudy glass rests a scrap of cloth, a brown sliver of bone, and a label written in cramped Latin. The household claims it is a relic of Saint Blaise. The merchant says it protects sleepers from choking. The clerk whispers that another manor claims the same saint's same bone, though larger. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether this relic came from a monastery, a merchant, or a relative skilled with labels. You remember the roadside shrine and the painted face lost to rain. The knight touches 2 fingers to the box. You do the same. Certainty is not required for politeness. The candle is pinched out. Darkness closes around the chamber. Every sound grows larger. The fire settles. Bed ropes creak. Wind presses the shutters. Somewhere in the wall the mouse begins work. The stranger on the truckle bed snores in 3 distinct notes. The merchant rolls toward you. You roll toward the clerk. The clerk resists like a boundary stone. A chapel bell counts an hour deep in the night. You remember the gatehouse half-burned candle, wet road broken cartwheel, and banquet dishes cooling below. Servants still scrape trenchers, carry chamber pots, bank fires, and count silver. Sleep arrives slowly. Then the oak door creaks open. Cold air crosses the floor. The dog lifts its head but does not bark. A shadow passes beyond the bed curtains. Iron keys give one quiet chime. Perhaps a servant checks the fire. Perhaps the steward searches for missing plate. Perhaps the suspicious relic has decided to walk. Even now it is hard to tell whether you dream. The door closes. The dog settles again. You pull the wool blanket higher, breathe lavender smoke and damp straw, and lie very still between 2 strangers, until the wind, the snores, and the distant bells finally carry you toward morning. The bells wake you before the light. Their sound passes through the shutters slow and hollow, carrying across roofs still dark with rain. For a few breaths you do not know where you are. Then the merchant's elbow presses into your side, the clerk's shoulder blocks the wall, and the straw mattress answers every movement with a dry whisper. The fire is almost gone. Near the hearth, the brindled dog opens one eye, decides dawn is unimportant, and closes it again. Iron buckles click while the night servant dresses his master. Someone coughs behind the truckle bed curtains. You sit up carefully. The room tilts slightly. Strong ale hypocras, smoke dancing, and too many courses have left your head thick and your mouth dry. The mint and fennel may have saved your stomach, or perhaps your body simply negotiated through the night without consulting a physician. The merchant declares that wine has never troubled him while searching for a boot already on his foot. Cold waits beyond the blankets. You pull on the borrowed doublet and fasten the russet gown. Its rabbit fur collar smells of wax kitchen smoke and the banquet below. The clothing fits less tightly now, perhaps because the laces have stretched, perhaps because dignity has lost weight. A servant enters with a basin. The water is colder than yesterday's. You wash your face and hands. Rose water is absent. Morning hospitality concerns departure more than fragrance. Before anyone leaves, the servant checks the cups, blankets, stools, and small relic box. The brown sliver of Saint-Blaise still rests behind cloudy glass, protecting sleepers, choking guests, or household inventory according to whichever story proves useful. No one can quite agree whether the shadow and chiming keys in the night belong to a servant or a dream. The merchant heard nothing. The clerk claims he heard everything but saw nothing. The dog offers no testimony. You descend the narrow stair. Daylight leaks through arrow slits. Servants are already carrying ash chamber pots, linen, bones, crusts, and trenchers. Barrels are counted. Fires are stirred. The household moves before its guests fully wake. In the great hall, the feast has become evidence. Rushes are dark with ale, grease marks the cloths. Cups stand beside gnawed bones. One bench lies crooked where dancing shifted it. The salt cellar has vanished into locked storage. Without silver music and candlelight, the hall seems older and colder. The half-burned candle remains near the musician's corner. Its wick is black. A maid scrapes hardened wax from the tray, saving every useful piece. Even noble light is expected to work twice. The suspicious lawyer sleeps near the hearth, beneath his cloak, his amethyst ring still on one hand. At a lower table you receive coarse bread cheese and weak ale. The plain food tastes safer than anything served beneath ceremony. You eat slowly, while the dog receives a crust openly, its crimes forgiven by dawn. Outside frost covers the yard. Grooms lead horses from the stable, their breath rising white. Carts wait near the storehouses, including the one with the rope-bound wheel. The driver recognizes you and nods. His geese are gone. He looks relieved. The geese would likely disagree. At the gatehouse, the clerk retrieves your wooden token and marks your departure on a wax tablet. You have eaten, slept, and left without poisoning a nobleman, insulting the lord, losing silver, or dying behind a tapestry. This is considered orderly. The guard returns your old cloak. A page removes the borrowed gown and doublet, then gives back your road-stained tunic. Rank leaves your body faster than warmth. You step beneath the oak gate. The brindled dog follows. A groom calls after it, but no one pursues. Some swear that a dog choosing a traveller promises safe roads. Others say it promises another mouth near supper. The manor doors close behind you. Ahead lie the muddy causeway, ruined shrine, winter fields, and road toward the village. Dawn spreads through river mist while monastery bells sound across the pale distance. You walk with cold hands and a quieter stomach. The banquet remains behind in smoke, music, rank, and crumbs. Survival there requires patience, at gates clean fingers, guarded cups, careful bows, fortunate seating, restrained hunger, and the wisdom to distrust meat rejected by a stray dog. Yet the morning road asks less of you. Mud accepts every rank equally. The dog trots beside your boots. Behind you the last torch fades beneath the gatehouse arch without any farewell. And now the manor grows smaller behind the hedges, its chimneys fading into mist, its windows dimming as daylight gathers. The road becomes softer beneath your steps, and the cold no longer feels sharp, only distant, as though winter itself has grown tired. You hear the bells, once more slower now, each note opening a quiet space in the morning air. Smoke rises from village roofs. Somewhere bread begins baking. Somewhere a monk bends over a page, his fingers stained with ink, while the last candle beside him burns low. Your breathing settles. The feast, the music, the crowded bed, the silver cups, and the watchful faces loosen their hold. They drift backward like torchlight seen through rain. The stone walls become shadows. The shadows become mist. You no longer need to remember where to sit, how deeply to bow, which cup to raise, or whether the salt stands above you. No steward is counting your steps. No jester is watching for a stumble. No physician waits with leeches and a confident theory. There is only the road pale beneath dawn, and the small warmth of the dog moving beside you. Your cloak settles across your shoulders. Your hands rest easily. The bells fade until they are almost part of silence. The river mist thins over the fields. Frost shines softly on the hedges. The world becomes still dim and gentle. You continue without hurry, and as the manor disappears completely behind the last winter oak, the road carries you onward into quiet darkness where nothing more is required of you, and every door is already open. A soft warmth gathers beneath your cloak, not from fire or fur, but from knowing the feast is finished and the long night has released you. You are safe. You may rest now,